today, HB2 Bethesda, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com. The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Let's figure it out on the Archie Beslow radio show. He cares, he shares, he knows. The journey of our youth is in our control. So tell your family and tell your friends that the word on the street is we all should listen in. So let's figure it out on the Archie Beslow radio show.
Well, good evening. Happy Sunday. Hope everybody enjoyed their day. Hope you guys got your winter coats on. Hope you guys' homes are warm. Hope you got a lot of hot cocoa. Is it cocoa, Nikki? Do people still drink cocoa? Or is it hot chocolate? Marshmallows? All of it? Right. People with the fireplace, I'm hating because I live in an apartment. You guys got fireplaces kicked up. Right. God is great. I went to church this morning. Young pastor, minister Andre Crouch, a young man, spoke on rejection. Oh my God, it was very powerful subject. A lot of us are, and he touched on something that I remember that I wanted to tell the listeners about. He touched on how we can be so devastated in a breakup without realizing the only devastation that you should have is to not have a relationship with God. And I know I kind of paraphrase that, and Andre, don't hold me, saying it wrong, but that's what I got from your word today. And you're right. We deal with rejection harshly, but we don't realize that the God above don't reject us. We're never rejected by the person that means the most to us, and that is God. So without further ado, I'm going to get right into my show because we have a very, very hot show for you guys today. My in-studio guest is Miss Donyelle Brown. She's traveled from B-More. Is it Baltimore?
That is B-More,
yes. All right, the good B-More. Very powerful, dynamic woman. I always like having great people on my show. And when you reached out to me, it was a no-brainer.
Thank you.
So without any further ado, Miss Donyelle Brown, talk to my listeners.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today, to be able to share my story. Thank you so very much. Mm-hmm. So many people are going through this at this point in their life. And I also want to send condolences to the Bush family, the 41st president of the United States, George Bush. In the wake of the continued violence in Baltimore, now more than ever, we are in need of 1,000 points of light to come together to rebuild our neighborhoods and communities plagued by violence and trauma. So this is an important time. Mm-hmm. So many people are experiencing loss in some form or fashion, and we need to know how to get through that during these holidays.
All right, and if you can, now thank you for coming on. So just segue into your story so that the listeners can fully understand where you are in your life and what you're going through, even why you even wanted to come on the show to share your story.
Absolutely. Well, I want to first say our slogan, this Cody is called the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities, mm-hmm. and we're known as the CYEYC, which we're a pop-up charity event where we come in the communities and we just pop up on the scene and we do things to build and empower our communities through our efforts. But my slogan is Baltimore is not a leftover. Let's begin to make it over. Okay. And I think one by one we can all join in to make the city of Baltimore great again. But piggyback on what you were saying, back in July the 1st, and it's still very new and fresh for me. 2017, my son was gunned down at a gas station in Baltimore City. Mm-hmm. I remember vividly getting that call at about, I guess it was about 1:45 in the morning, and saying that he had been shot. Piggyback on that, prior to going to sleep that night, you know how God just shakes you a little bit before you doze off, and mm-hmm. He says, call somebody or reach out to somebody. Well, it was just like he shook me, and I ended up calling my son, and I had a conversation with him about the things we had to do the next day, and I congratulated him. He had actually gone for a job interview that Friday, so he had gotten the job, and he was supposed to start on that Monday. And so I congratulated him, and I told him what things that we were going to do to prepare him. And it was just the way he said this to me that when we got off the phone that evening, he said, "Mom, I love you." And I said, "I love you more." He said, "Mom, yeah, I know." He said, "But I've got to go." He said, "I got to go." And I don't think in all my life I've ever heard him say that to me like he did that night. It was something about, "But I've got to go," that resonated inside of me. And when I got the call and I jumped up, there's a panic that comes over you as a parent. First of all, there's disbelief. And then there is that feeling of that phone call didn't take place. You're almost in a trance. You just are moving, but you don't know how you're moving. Your body's just moving and you're going along with it. As I got another call that they didn't know where he was, the first thing that I thought was, this can't be my son. There's no possible way. Somehow this information is not correct. Mm-hmm. So I jumped up, and I don't know if anyone that is listening to the show has ever been through anything traumatic. You think to yourself, what am I to put on? How do I put on clothes? All of that went through my mind. I didn't even know how to put on the clothes. And mind you, at our age, we know how to put on our pants, our shirt, and our shoes. But at that point, nothing registered. And I went out. I had no coat. I just went out, and I started driving around the city of Baltimore because no one could tell me where my son was. I called several hospitals, and they told me that no one by that name was there. But the irony in this is, as I called one of the hospitals, she said to me, "Ma'am, there are only 2 John Does here." Wow. And I became very angry and almost to the point of confrontation with her. And I said, "My son's name is not John Doe. I don't know what you're talking about." In the moments of that happening, it just never hit me that possibly anything like this could happen. Mm-hmm. So I proceeded to drive to downtown Baltimore, and they told me he wasn't there. I had phone calls coming in as to where he was. As I drove up at about 2:30, almost 2:30, I came across an area near Mondawmin Mall, mm-hmm. and I saw the first police officer, and I said, "Excuse me, I need to know how to get to my child." They said something happened to my child. And in the midst of all this, I'm kind of hysterical and I'm upset, and she's telling me just to slow down and she would help me. Unbeknown to me, apparently they had already known what had happened to my son. So she and I began to talk a little bit more in depth. She said, "Is anybody meeting you?" And I said to her, of course, it's like his other mother." And I always call this mm-hmm. family that he loved so much is his other family. And she said, "Are they coming here?" And I'm like, "Ma'am, all I need to know is how to get to the hospital or to the place my son is." And steady, she's talking to me, and I'm not catching on why she's holding me there. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, made the call to the person that was meeting me, which I called is his other extended family, who's always been there mm-hmm. For Cody and I through all this tragedy and throughout of his life. And she pulled up, and the lady said, spoke to her, the police officer, and she told her where I was. And then she jumped in the car and said, "Can she drive you?" And I'm thinking, why would she be driving me to this hospital? Nowhere along the lines did I ever imagine or even think that anything was going on, like my son was fatally killed. The whole time, I'm thinking that we're going to get there and he's going to be sitting up like, "Mom, see what happened to me?" And kind of like laughing it through, because that's the character he was. Mm-hmm. He was not a pretentious kid. He was a loving kid. He was one of those kids that would hug you, and you knew that you were being hugged by Cody because he was a big kid. Mm-hmm. He was like the big bear that just loved on you, and he'd do anything for anyone. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't imagine any of this. But the weird part about it was that evening, as time went on, months later, there was a homicide truck that drove right on the side of me that I never paid attention to until probably I realized it 4 or 5 months later. In all of that, she drove me there. One of the lieutenants of the police department came, and she just drove and she stopped the traffic. Mind you, at this point, I still never knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I, to this day, only remember walking in the hospital, and there were 2 people that came over to me. They would not let me see my son. And I thought that was pretty different and weird, and never, I mean, I didn't know, I never experienced anything like this, so I never knew what to expect. And I'm thinking, why, is he in surgery, or I'm the only one who can identify him? And I never forget going in that room. They take you in a side room. And at that point, I blanked out. I completely blanked out and just yelled and screamed. And I couldn't understand the God I serve, that I love so much, had allowed this to happen. And I think for about 3 or 4 months, I was in complete denial that it ever happened. And even though you go through it as a parent and you see it and you're bearing your child and you're there, you're still not there. You're there in the physical sense, but mentally, I was not there. So the whole time I'm going through the whole process, I still have to ask, for months later, is Cody really gone? Is Cody coming home? Is Cody? I really believed, and from time to time, to be honest, I do believe sometimes, which helps me get through, that he's in college. You know, that he's getting ready to play football this weekend somewhere, because from the age of 15 up until this, my son went to school in Utah, in Scottsdale, Arizona, in Williamstown, New Jersey, in Washington, D.C. So he had extensive life of traveling for football because he was recruited at age 15. And so it's just that moment, and getting through the holidays with something like this. And to those that are out there that are listening, my prayers are with you. But what I will honestly say, which encourages me every day I wake up, my son is with me every single day of my life. Every step of the way, he's right there with me.
Well, I'm what you call a sensitive host, because I believe in life, I believe in love, I believe in God, I believe in family. The gun violence, we often say that gun violence needs to stop, and you're one of the advocates of not just talking about it. Tell my listeners some of the things that you do in the communities to try to circumvent that as much as possible.
Since the loss of Cody, I created a charity called the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charity, and we are a pop-up charity event where we come into the neighborhoods and we try to bring back the hope. We bring back the hope in the city, and we bring back the love. You win with love. This is all about showing young people that somebody loves you and that somebody is there paying attention to you, and that you don't have to take a life, that your life has great value. And until they know that, this thing will continue to happen. And so as a pop-up event organization, we go in the community, we listen to what it is that they want. We provide food, we provide free haircuts, we encourage them to do something different. We talk about some of the things that they want to see change in their communities, but we let them know we're winning with love. When you win with love, anything is possible. But those young men and those young women don't know what love looks like until they see it on you. So you have to really, enforce that. So that's what we do.
So what are some of the kickbacks or the negativity that you get from our young men and young women when you go into these communities and we know that they don't have anything. So give my listeners some advice on maybe a couple of kids that you have reached, and what was your approach to reaching, these particular kids?
Well, a lot of them, of course, the conditions in which they were brought up in and the conditions which they're raised in, they have a code in those streets, and they have to protect themselves. But what I explain to them is that, and I don't ever go to them with, you're bad, or what you're doing isn't right, or you took somebody's life, and I don't go to them with that anger and that venom. I go to them letting them know that I understand that you have to protect yourself, but you don't protect yourself at taking someone's life. First of all, you don't have a right to.
Only God.
Only God. You don't have that right. And then I talk to them about, we talk about, things like karma and things that could happen to your child and to your loved one. And that you got to be the person that stands for something, or this thing will continue to happen. They have to be the ones that stand up and say, I'm not doing this today. And then, we talk very openly. We talk, I'm like, they say shorty, I say shorty. They say, Miss Brown, what's up? I say, no, you tell me what's up.
You gotta
so you got to be relatable. Right. You got to know your audience. And it's time for us in our communities to become relatable and loving and stop trying to go and hide from it. Because this is not, as I had a conversation with someone earlier, this does not discriminate. This does not have a demographic or geographical look to it. This doesn't look like this person with the hood on, or this person with this clothing on, or this person that's black or white or green. It doesn't have a look. It's all over.
If you're listening, please give us a call at 800-450-7876. Again, that's 800-450-7876. And share with the listeners if you have lost a loved one due to gun violence or any type of violence, or if you missed a loved one and you're missing them around the holiday seasons, please call in and share your story, because it can actually help others cope with what they're going through. In the wake of, do you mind saying what happened, how the incident that happened with Cody, or you?
Well, Cody was shot at a gas station, and from the footage, it's so interesting you asked me this. I've been supposed to have been going to court, and I know that some people out there that can speak on this. You get these court dates constantly to go to court, and then they say something else happened and something else happened. Well, in the interim of this, I was supposed to be in court his birthday, which was in October, again, after 4 of the court dates. And then they tell me that there was a tragic situation that happened to one of the prosecutor's family members or what have you. And I just, of course, that you have to just suck it up and bear it. So that night, Cody was at a gas station, and from what I could see only from TV, I have not been... My ex-husband probably has stood in the way for me seeing some of this, and I think God. So the car pulls back, and then they get out and they just started shooting. And my son is a big guy. He's a big kid. He doesn't know, he's not really familiar with, do I run, do I get out? Yeah. So first reaction to him was to get out the car and run. And as he's getting out, they're shooting and shooting. And so his adrenaline got him to run. And as he ran, he collapsed. He was shot 4 times, and they shot him in his back. And, I had issue with the fact that he never got a chance to defend himself. And he never got a chance to probably even look at the person in their face and know what this was about. I have no resolve, no understanding of why.
Have they caught the victim?
They
suspect?
did.
Okay.
They did. They have a young man in jail now.
Okay.
But my son had no money. He had no. I totally don't know. I hear stories. Of course, we all hear stories of what could have possibly went on, but that's not important to me. What's important to me is that we have these senseless crimes that are going on every day. And our youth are becoming desensitized. And I don't want to see that continue to happen.
Well, I don't think I know because of my law enforcement background. A lot of our whomever's committing crimes. I mean, it's not even always young kids. We got even grown-ups that's committing crimes via domestic violence. It's just running amok, and we all have to start sensing when someone needs us to talk to them. We have to sense when someone is not acting normal. Instead of saying, people often say, "That's not my child, I don't know what happened." So when you're actually saying that, you're saying you're being guilty without even knowing that you're being guilty of those moments that you wasted, that you could have actually put in the time with your child.
That's right.
And of course we know there are kids that come through solid families. So let me tell you about the solid families. There are solid families that the families are so solid that they know that their kids don't want for anything, that they still neglect their kids because now they're giving them things without actually giving them love. They're giving them things. So things go away all the time. Love stays on your heart.
Yep.
If you continue to feed love, if you continue to nourish, if you continue to commend, help out, hug,
yes,
quiet time,
yes,
that goes a long way because now a young man or a young lady is going to be a cliche. There's no place like home.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we have a generation of young people that have lost touch. They don't know that. They haven't even lost touch with it. They don't know that. If you don't have that, you don't know that. And I think we also have to understand that, our kids are not just going to be in this closed-in bubble. They go out, they meet other people, they venture other places. And so we have to even teach them, how to deal with certain situations and win people with love. This thing is just not about what we're teaching at home, but we have to understand even keeping our kids covered as they're moving along out there throughout the day and moving and interacting daily with people. I'm just believing that we can rebuild our communities, and the only way to do that is if that child at home isn't getting love, then it is my responsibility as a parent to show them love.
It worked for us coming up. So we knew right from wrong, but we respected our parents and our elders so much that we didn't do things just in a reckless manner. We made sure that the elders didn't see it or our mom and dads didn't see it. We didn't curse in front of our mom and dads. We didn't drink with our mom and dads. We didn't. So a lot of things that mom and dads are allowing is causing a domino effect, because even if your child is not doing it, your child is sharing the stories with his peers.
Yep,
so
that is correct.
Now the peers are going, they're talking amongst each other, well, with such and such mom and dad allow him to have his girlfriend in his room. So you can't show someone else's child something that you know is wrong, even though you're allowing your kid to do it. But we are just, like you have some people say, hey, this is my house. I can smoke in my house if I want to. Well, even if it's your house, if you got a person that has bad lungs or don't like smoke.
That's right.
So just out of respect to that person.
I think you just said it, the respect. We don't have respect anymore in our communities, in our homes. There's no respect. Let me tell you something. Back then, if that neighbor saw me do something wrong, it was on. She had the right to pull me up. She had the right to discipline me. They didn't wait till they got home to see my parents or to have that conversation. She stepped in. There's none of that going on now because of the fear. We got to take the fear out and put faith in. We got to start doing faith walks all the way through.
For my faith people,
can't fear it.
You'll look on TV, and places like Baltimore, places like Chicago, places like down in Florida, where they have like the violence sometimes is crazy. You see a lot of people mobilizing, a lot of churches mobilizing and marking their territory. You know, what I've really realized, it's something, and it's way off the cuff. So in my community, there's a cleaners, and it's in it is what it is. It's in the hood. It's in the hood. You got the beauty, and once again, you got the beauty supply store, the liquor store, the Dollar Mart, and all that. At what point do we realize, people, that we need to go against what they're trying to give us?
Right.
And my point in the cleaners, this is an Asian-owned cleaners, and he has this big 50-inch TV, and all he plays on the TV is gospel music.
Wow.
So when I first walked in, I was like, this dude is kind of weird. Why is he playing gospel? What is he trying? But every time I go in that cleaners, That's a amazing. Calm.
Amen.
In that area. No one is standing in front of the cleaners.
Amen.
Nobody is going in the cleaners.
See?
My point is, the power of God works itself out.
Amen.
So the fear that we have, if we believe in, if we trust in, go ahead. You
just said something so powerful.
Go ahead,
now here we are talking about some people that came over here to our country that got it. They got it. They in our neighborhoods owning businesses. And I want to say something to that, because another thing that we do speak on in our with our charity and our working with the youth is to explain to them, you have businesses inside of you. So that business you standing in front of, it's supposed to be yours. It's supposed to be yours. When gangs and things were originally brought about, they weren't brought about to destroy each other. That's not the conception there. They were brought about to reestablish themselves or establish themselves in communities to own something. When are you going to be, because you got the business ethic, because you wouldn't be on this corner all day. So let's cultivate it. Let's show you how to own that store you're standing in front of. But like you said, nobody's showing them. We're too afraid. But if the Asian people, honey, can put on some gospel and change the dynamics and the energy on that corner, how much more can we?
How much can we do?
How much can we do?
How much are we willing to do?
How much are we willing to do?
Why don't we do it? Why do we, if we see the guys standing where they're standing, why do we walk around and go the opposite way? So at the end of the day, if you believe in God, if you're strong with your faith, and sometimes if your demeanor can circumvent anything. People always prey and pry on people's weaknesses. We're talking relationships, we're talking family, we're talking about at work, we're talking about in the sporting events.
That's right.
The job of anybody that's competing against anything is to find the opponent's weakness. A lot of us are walking in our weakness without even realizing that we're walking in our weakness. That's why relationships are failing.
That's right. And it's so funny you say that, because now my life is no longer my life. My life is about a mission to serve and to make sure young people know that, and they call me Miss Dee Dee. You know, I as an insurance agent, I go in many different neighborhoods, and I was in a neighborhood recently, and so ironically we're having this conversation about changing the atmosphere and the dynamics right there. Young man walks up to me and he's like, "Is that you, Miss Dee Dee?" I'm like, "How did you know me in this car? My hair pulled up. I got on glasses. What in the world?" And I guess he saw I had my son's necklace, and we wear bands since the day my son has passed. Everybody wears these blue bands, and he saw the band. And as he was standing there, we were talking, and I said, "Come here." I said, "How are you? Give me a hug. You know what you doing out on this corner?" And he started sharing with me about what had happened, and he just got out of jail, whatever. And I said, "Let me ask you something." He said he lost his driver's license, but he could get this job. I said, if I send somebody here, or if I personally come back and pick you up and take you to MVA, would you go? Would you go?
Right.
And at first he was kind of, I said, "No, would you go?"
Right.
Because all you need is your driver's license to get that job, right? Would you go?
Right.
And then he said, "Yes." And so I did that. I came back. I made sure he got there. You know, it's taking the interest, and he thanked me.
Thank you.
And then ironically, that everyone, young men, those men that were standing on that corner, whatever he said, they dispersed. Because there's a level of respect.
A level of respect. Okay.
When you respect them.
The street guys know respect more than anything.
Amen. Amen.
It's another thing I learned from being in law enforcement. I had the utmost in respect from, I must say, citizens. For the good citizens and the not so good citizens,
Mm-hmm.
we both had a mutual respect for one another because how I presented myself.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're bad or good, I'm still going to respect you
Mm-hmm.
because you are a child of God. I can't. It's not my job to
right.
judge you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing, everyone is fearful of something.
Yes.
First of all, you're fearful of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And being embarrassed,
yes,
and the word of the day, rejection. So a lot of I guess we call them street dudes. They're fearful of the fact that a person is going to judge them, so they put up their defense mechanisms. And you are a perfect example of when you come in peace and say, "Hey, young man," or "Hey, young lady."
Yes.
I've seen someone in your circumstances and situations. I've helped them before.
Right.
What are some of the things that you need? What is it that you want that you don't have? Can we at least talk about it? Because apparently you need someone to talk to. I'm that person that you can talk to.
Yes, and as a native Baltimorean and a person that grew up in Baltimore and grew up just in the city itself, there is something that you have that's innate inside of you that you know that, hey, you know what? It's only by God's grace that for the grace of God, there goeth I. So who am I not to let them know that you are somebody, right? Somebody. Yeah, and you have something great.
If you walk strongly in your faith, it resonates.
That's so cool.
I always tell people, before a conversation starts, the spirits start.
Come on. Yes.
Spirits start talking first.
Come on.
Then the human flesh follows. That's why a lot of times when you are confronted with somebody, you go the other way because even before you looked at them, the spirits are automatically starting to connect. So if you're in tune with God, off the break, your spirit is going to have you go the opposite way.
Right. But see, some of us are not in tune. We're not in tune. And if we walk around with a blind eye, see, you can't be blinded by this. This is not something that we can live in a community and be oblivious to it.
Right.
You got to stand up for something. And maybe God has you in that community to stand. And I'm not saying go out there and act radical. Don't get me wrong.
But you don't have to.
But when with love.
So Dr. King, and we're going to, and I say it all the time, I mentor kids, I talk to families, what have you. People often ask me, how or why is this going on? Well, the people before us, our ancestors, from the Harriet Tubmans to, it's amazing how we don't use our history to help raise and teach these kids.
That's good.
And you and I both was talking about the movie, The Green Book.
Green Book. Oh,
powerful.
What an amazing movie. Powerful. What an amazing movie.
There are so many movies and shows that you can actually sit down and talk to a child with. You can sit down and talk to a young adult with. Shoot, you can sit down and talk with an adult with if you pick the right programs. You really, in real talk, families can take from reality TV shows. I know I'm the main one to say I don't like really kids watching it, but if a mature family member will actually sit down and say, hey, these ladies or these men on these reality shows because they did their groundwork first.
Amen.
They're using their skills to make money. That's it.
That's it.
They're not using their skills to influence you to do something. This is their means of eating.
And so we need more of that.
We need more. We need to break the shows down.
We need
all
more
shows
of that.
are not bad shows because we grew up watching the black cinema movies back in the day. That was pretty harsh. It was a lot of prostitution, killings, shootings, gang bang, heroin, all that. But we didn't come up looking to do all that.
No, we didn't. But that was a different feeling. I was telling someone, I remember, do you remember when you dressed back then in the two collar shows, the Azoid, you put on the two collars and you put on the pink one and the green one and the pink and green socks and you had on your Sebagos and you had on your Opie. We took pride in the way we looked. Appearance was everything.
You didn't have the pick in the back of your head. You wasn't sagging.
Your pants weren't sagging. You took pride.
You took pride in yourself.
You took
You took pride in your family name because
yes.
at the end of the day, it all goes back to mom and dad, whether they're living or not living. It's so. And my thing is, and I can say it. I mean, both of my parents are healthy and living, but at the end of the day, if your mom and dad is not here, that should be the motivation.
Yes.
To make you a better person.
Yes. Yes.
You shouldn't be angry. Mm-hmm. It should motivate you to do something positive for
and better and something better. But I think, and it goes back to saying, you know, if you look at the school systems, and you have children that are abusing teachers, there is a underlying energy or culture or something that we're not dealing with, that we're not addressing. And I think the power in all of what you're seeing just recently with the situation with the school teacher is that at the end of it all, she said, don't set up any GoFundMe pages. Right. She said, what I want to say to that young lady is when you're ready, I will mentor you.
Amen.
That is powerful. Yeah. That is powerful because there was no hate in her. She said, I was once that little girl. Mm-hmm. We got to understand we were once something. I don't care what you were. You were once something.
And tell you the story. Every solution, for every problem, there is a solution.
Yes.
And we all know at the end of the day, the solution is God. So, and like you said, if you haven't gotten to that point yet of truly accepting Him 100%, Amen. So at least know that with conversation, we can come to a solution about anything.
Come on.
Stop being intimidated by the fact that your communicating with someone may bring out your skeletons. Well, indeed, your skeletons is the solution to the problem.
I like that. That's it. That's it right there. Because we all have a story.
We all have it.
We all have a story.
We all have good stories. We all have bad stories. We've all lost loved ones. We've all saved people. Life is not complicated. And I'm 50 something, so I wasn't always.
Come on, say it.
Life is not if and we're gonna use this word often. If you got peace, love, and faith,
all things
are possible.
Not one thing, not some things, but all things. And when we know that, see, it's back to what we had talked about earlier before the show. Mm-hmm. You have a generation that don't know how they even got here. They don't know that only the strongest of strongest people survived on that journey.
That's right.
So if you got that up in you, my God, how much greater can you be? See, it's the journey. And if they could come through all of that adversity in life, your forefathers and their forefathers, how much stronger are you?
They were gang banging and they couldn't fight back.
See?
They whole lot for 400 and some years, they were getting attacked by gangs. And we're talking about the slave masters. We're talking about the laws that was put down. We was talking about going into colored bathrooms, couldn't eat in certain restaurants, couldn't talk to certain. So what we're doing now is nowhere near to the struggle. I often say it. Dr. King got up out of his bed every morning not knowing if he was going to come home.
Wow.
Without a gun or a knife.
That's powerful.
All he did was lock on.
But you just said it, by faith. He just went out on faith. Where's the faith? Where's our real faith walkers?
When our family's going to start linking up and locking arms and bringing that child in that your son hang out with, knowing that child has an issue. When are you going to stop having your kids introduce you to everybody they associate themselves with?
Wow.
You have to know everybody. When are you going to go and build a rapport with the teacher prior to school starting and not when your kid get a bad grade?
Yes. And I think that, we as parents, and we all have it, we're trying to live our lives and trying to bring the best life for our kids. Some of us are working job after job. We want this great life. And, you said something earlier that really stuck with me as I was sitting here. And we do find, and I know I've been guilty of this, where I'm buying the kid. Here, take that, I'm going to buy you that. Here, take that, I'm going to buy you that. Where God just maybe God saying to me, or even I've said to myself, we're not buying this today. What we're going to do, which is interesting, I said to Cody that night, we're going to go to dinner or go somewhere, and we're just going to talk about what it is that you need to make sure that this job opportunity. Mind you, he hadn't even really been in Baltimore for any long period of time. So this all was a new thing for me. I always flew out to Utah or to Scottsdale, Arizona. I would take some of his best friends. Let's go. You know, if God provided a way for me, we went there. Because I wanted him to know that you know, I sacrificed, I was bringing him the love that he could see his friends be a part of, and then to let them travel to somewhere else. It was just powerful. But you know, in saying that, we have got to understand, we got to slow down sometimes and really deal with our children and their friends, and some of these kids that are yearning, they're crying out for help. There's not a squeegee child that I go by that I don't give $1 to. And you know what now? They know me. And they don't just know me as giving them $1. The first thing they say is, yeah, I went to school. It's amazing. They know my conversation. Did you go to school today? You know, what did you learn? I don't just give without having a conversation and letting them know you have such great purpose. If you're out here doing this, you can have any business.
I'm not a scientist, but I know if I was to engage any young man or any young woman, and if I consistently say something positive on a consistent basis, that's going to resonate in their mind. We are failing to edify each other. If we edify more, you're actually giving people hope by edifying them. I noticed yesterday that your shoes are untied. Today I see both of your shoelaces tied. So a kid would be like, they paying attention to my shoelaces? So guess what? So now their focus will go to his shoelaces.
Shoelaces. Something just profound.
But I'm saying, we make life so difficult. We have prominent athletes. A lot of our prominent athletes struggled. They were hungry. We have to ask our kids. We even ask families. Families need to get together and ask each and every one of them, what are you hungry for in life?
Yes.
What do you want out of this life before you leave this life?
Yes. So one of the programs that we have under the Cody Young Empowerment Youth Charities is we ask people, who are your first 5 pick? We ask students and young people, if there were 5 people that you could pick that would help you through something, or that would you would call on in time of need, who would those first 5 people be? And what's interesting and very hurtful when I first started doing the program was that out of 15 kids, only 2 said their parent.
Wow. Well, I'm a football coach, so I know where you're going with this.
Okay, and so that led me to understand that these kids don't even find faith or confidence in their own mother or father.
Nope.
That is disturbing to me.
It's very disturbing. I have had fathers actually yell at their child, say, Coach Archie is not your dad, I'm your dad. It's so
my God.
Instead of pulling me up, man, how are you reaching little Steve?
No, instead of just saying thank you for reaching little Steve. Come on.
That's a whole
because I can't do what you just did for little Steve. And guess what? You may have saved little Steve's life tonight. Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
We got to know who you know, I tell friends of mine, you got to know who God is putting in your place.
Come on, man.
To allow them to do what they're supposed to do. I can't always reach that child. Yeah. I may have, even with my own daughter or my grandson, we have conversations, and I'll tell my sister, I said, you know what, I may ask such and such to talk to her, because I know the last time they spoke, she listened. or my grandson, listen.
Listen.
This is about a collective unit of all of us coming together.
I have goddaughters, and my goddaughters call me, and we talk.
Yes.
And every so often, their moms or their dads would be like, "Hey, you talked to such and such?" I said, "Yeah, I talked to her yesterday." Oh, wow. Well, I haven't talked to her in 4 days. Is she okay?
Bingo.
I said, yeah, she's cool.
Bingo.
What seems to be going on? I said, well, we talk in confidence, but I can tell you what you can do. You need to reach out, and instead of saying, "Are you all right?" or instead of saying just the normal things that we say to our kids, simply say, "Hey, I'm your mom. Be ready. Are you home? If you're home, be ready at 6 o'clock. I'm coming to get you."
Come on.
Because at the end of the day, we are all God's children.
Yes.
So when we're not doing right by ours, we're directly disrespecting Him.
God, amen. That's real. But we don't see it under that light. We always have have this other way of seeing things that, it's simple things sometimes. It's the simple things. I've had people to say to me, the very first event that we gave out, there were free haircuts, and it was moon bounces. There were we did different combine things, and that's something I want to continue to do, the different combines, football, basketball, and it just we gave out the food and things of that nature. But when those kids came back, and they came back this coming year, we did another event, and when I remembered what they told me about what they may have been going through or what they were doing, it was a light that went off in them. You paid attention to me? You heard what I said?
That's all they want to hear.
That's all they want to
This
hear.
is one time.
And we're the same way. And so you said something about being in church. So today was really interesting. We're having this conversation. But my pastor said something about if you don't speak to a thing, it dies. You got to keep on speaking to it.
Speak to it.
Speak
to it.
Speak
Water
to
it.
it.
Feed
That's
it.
right.
Rub it.
Edify it.
Hug it.
Yes. Edify it. Tell it it's a good
You
thing.
got to.
Tell it it can do great things.
Yeah.
Tell it it's got some great work inside of it to do. Tell it you're a beautiful, person. Tell them that you are somebody.
And share your story.
And share your story.
We are all storytellers. I'll never forget, my spiritual advisor said, "Archie, you're not going to reach as many people as you can reach until you start sharing your story."
That's it.
And it was amazing because I don't have to think about my story. I live my story. These young kids out here don't have to think about where they're going through and what they want because they are living their life. We have to find ways to get it out of them.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And we fell and we first have to teach them to respect grandma and grandpa.
Yes.
If grandma and grandpa is not living, once again, you have to tell them how grandma and grandpa got you to where you are. And without grandma and grandpa, you wouldn't be here. For these young men that's running around here saying, "My father ain't nothing, my father." Well, your father was the seed, which was the important component
That's right.
of even being on this earth.
That's how you wouldn't be here.
So at the end of the day, just respect them.
Yes.
Because you run around not liking them, beefing them. Who is that helping?
Bingo.
Who first? Who wins in any situation when you cutting people off? And we're talking immediate family. We're talking moms, fathers, sisters, grandmothers, even aunts, uncles, and cousins.
That's right.
When we start cutting our family members off for lesser things that our peers are doing, but yet we'll forgive our peers, but we won't reconnect with our families.
Wow. That's powerful. And that's what where
the confusion comes with the kids. The confusion. If we're not solid, so you preach to me all my life, family. Okay, so I'm waiting. I'm looking at mine. I'm waiting to see a product of what a family should be.
Will look like. But there is none. The
So
only product they have is in their music or what they see on IG or Facebook. There's nothing that really symbolizes or edifies. Thanksgiving just went by, and somebody asked me a question: "How are you going to get through it?" And didn't start cooking till 3 o'clock. It took me a minute, but I still placed the place at the table for my son, because that is his place.
Amen.
And that is his honorable seat. And sometimes we have to understand that during there are times in our lives where we have to still set the example of what family looks like, what love looks like, what this whole thing is all about.
Amen.
Because we've lost sight of it.
We're not teaching.
We're not teaching. So you have a hopeless spirit.
Right.
And when there is no hope, there is no vision.
Yep.
There's a lack of vision. So, and I know there's a lot of people that went through trauma, it has been through some levels of trauma.
But the thing about it, we are accountable at school, we are accountable at work, but we're not accountable at home.
And I think that has to go back to the fact that there's so much going on with social media. So it is taking the family unit out of the family unit. And it's so funny we say this, that when I was a kid, I don't know if anybody remembers Geno's.
Yeah,
so every Friday, there was Geno's at my house. But we sat at a table. No matter what you were doing, no matter if you had something going on, for 1 hour, especially on a Friday, because we knew the weekend was going to start, so we may not see each other. My parents sat me down at a table on a Friday. Structure.
Family first.
Family first. Now, Monday through Thursday, we did have, but we knew we were in the house because there was a work day. But on that Friday, we were going to sit at that table and we were going to eat together. And so we've lost that sense.
And it's so simple.
It is simple.
And then people tell me, yeah, I work a lot. Everybody has leave. If you do it once a month, it's a start.
It's a
if you
start.
say I'm about to do it, D.
Go ahead.
People will put flyers up faithfully every first Friday, every first Saturday, every first. Are they missing it? They're going to show up. They're going to show up.
On.
So why can't you as a family, instead of waiting for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, why not say every third Sunday of the month?
Come on. And my mom, who I love, she's 85, she can't cook anymore, but guess what? On Sunday, she makes sure even if you just bring something to the house,
come on, man,
because that is a tradition.
It's a tradition.
That is a tradition. We meet at my mom's house every Sunday.
Come on.
I wouldn't care if
She
there was.
deserves it.
She deserves it. She deserves it. And so that right there has been something. Even my grandson, who's 8, says we're going to Nana's house.
Come on, man.
We're going to Nana's house. What time we going to Nana's house?
Yeah, planting something.
I've been planting it. He already knows. And so next, God forbid, when anything ever happens to my mother, it'll be Yaya's house.
Yeah.
My house.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to stop the tradition.
Shouldn't be stopped.
It should never be stopped. And so
shouldn't be stopped.
we got to slow down. We got to slow down.
Family in this day and time is even more important.
Yes, it is.
When we were kids.
Absolutely.
We had it at a time when our moms and dads and grandparents had went through so much. They saw so much from rioting, slavery.
Yes.
They saw so much. So now we take it for granted.
We do.
It doesn't take but a second to say, "Hey, young man," and I'm just letting you know. I'm gonna take what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your top 5?
Who your top 5?
I'm gonna use it.
Who you picking?
Because at the end of the day, if a child tells you who their top 5 is, and I was to go back and have a conversation with their mom or dad, I'm gonna be very brief with what I have to tell you.
Right.
I asked your child who was his top 5.
Right.
You want a part of his top 5.
You want a part of the startup gang. You want a part of the startup. That's your startup team. If your child doesn't know that you are a part of the startup team, you should be the startup team, first of all.
You should be the only person. I don't have 5, but I can give you 1 or 2.
I give you 1 or 2. But it's so sad when 9 times out of 10, it's my boy's somebody,
That's
or
what
my
they do.
boy, or my...
Even somebody on TV. First First of all, if you say
That's
my
not-
top 5, they wouldn't even think about family.
And then that person is not tangible, so that's even scarier. We're talking about a generation that looks at a top 5 as being something that they can't even sometimes physically touch or
I
feel.
would never see. Yeah.
That will never see them, that will never talk to them on their phone,
But has their attention.
but that has their attention.
And then you have to ask them why.
And, back to what, we were saying earlier, we have to be responsible for not just our children and ourselves, but we've got to start teaching, start educating, start showing these kids you are someone. There is greatness inside of you.
Donyelle, I want to thank you
Thank
for coming
you.
on the show,
Thank
sharing
you.
your story. And I'm going to say this once again, and by no means, and everybody know me, I say what I say, do what I do. And for my people that watch on social medias and all that, it's cool to check in and see what Archie is talking about. But at the end of the day, and I appreciate it, but sometimes you have to stay in the course. Are there a lot of things that we don't want to hear or we may be bored with? Or not? Sometimes you got to wait it out. You have to weather the storm to wait on your message, to wait on your word.
Yes.
You're not going to always get your word from a church setting.
Come on. You got to be in the process of going through this thing.
You got to be in the process.
It's a daily process. It's a daily process.
And you have to listen, feel, and relate to everything and everybody that you encounter.
Yes, absolutely. And so, with this generation and with what we all should be wanting to do going into this new year is to win people back with love and hope and let people know they're not a leftover. They can be made over.
All right, we're going to end it with that. You're not a leftover and you can be made over. I can't thank my Dynamite sister, Donyelle Brown, for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year and all that good stuff. Just learn to love thyself. Learn to love life.
Yes.
Let's embrace God. Let's embrace Allah, whomever you worship or cherish.
Yes.
Let's start loving again. And loving can sometimes be silent. You can love a person and be silent. You can just be in that person's presence. You can just hold their hands.
Still.
You can just give a hug. And you're right, just be still.
Be still.
All right. Well, I'll be back next week on these WOL 95.9 FM, 1450 AM, and on WODCnews.com. Information is power. This is the Archie Beslow Show. Let's figure it out. Thank you guys once again. See you next week.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Nick. See that? What? We live. Y'all know, hey, I'm impromptu. Y'all get, there you go.
Hey. So